pitching market, though, what I was leading to, coming in at your top underrated pitcher. I really love these pitchers that you put together, and I'm going to kind of poke at a name that is a little bit bigger as well. Let's start with the Pirates and Thomas Harrington. You got Thomas Harrington as an underrated pitcher. I think it is a great bet on any Pirates pitcher. I actually would have even said like Ashcraft. I feel like people are still kind of sitting back on Ashcraft a little bit. They've got Bubba. I mean, they just got they have a glut of great pitchers that they're developing really well. So talk to us about Thomas Harrington.
Yeah, I love Harrington. I think he's got a bit more respect from the redraft crowd maybe than the dynasty crowd. He's got 5 average or better pitches, which is very rare for a pitching prospect. And he also has plus command, which is very rare. And I think he's got the second best command of any top 100 pitching prospect outside of Andrew Painter. So he doesn't have premium velocity, but decent movement on the fastball and just a ton of ways to get you out. And I'm going to bet on a guy with that type of command and that deep of an arsenal. Like, I think there's kind of shades of like Jack Flaherty, maybe. Just a guy I think is just massively underrated because people aren't seeing him throw 97, 98 or seeing a bunch of GIFs of like a 70 grade breaking ball or anything like that. But I just think he's a really complete pitcher. And I kind of like the fact that he isn't, living in that extreme velo range as a young pitcher. And he's had success with the kind of more 93, 94 mile an hour fastball. And obviously the Pirates, I think, have kind of flipped the narrative about how they do with pitchers. So Harrington to me is like a borderline top 50 prospect and someone I trying to get as much as I can up in redraft, but his price keeps going up.
Comparative to those top 100 pitchers, I'm going to just throw some because I'm not looking at your list to go off of it. But let's say Thomas Harrington or Thomas White.
Harrington, but Thomas White's one of the best pitching prospects who isn't that close to the big leagues, in my opinion. But I'm just a mass. Like when it comes to pitching prospects, like the 2 biggest things for me are proximity and health, and so I'm just always going to gravitate to the guys that I think are going to be up the current year, and guys that I don't have to worry about like needing Tommy John surgery right when they show up to spring training. So that's kind of where I go with pitching prospects. But Tommy White, I mean, he's a hell of a upside play. But I would go with Harrington because I think there's plenty of upside there too.
What about the Pirates rotation of prospects? Bubba Chandler, Harrington, Ashcraft. How do you rank those 3?
In that order: Chandler, Harrington, Ashcraft. I just worry. I just don't think Ashcraft can handle the starter's workload. I think he's got probably better stuff than Harrington. Just if you look at like the top 2 pitches, Ashcraft probably has better stuff, but I've got him pegged as a future reliever just due to the durability issues.
Something I got to ask, this is not on the underrated, but I was just thinking about it. Are you terrified of Roki? Are you just terrified of Sasaki? Like with all of the conversation around, I say this all the time, but Brozdowski did just a great video breaking down so much. I think we probably all consumed it, but that highlight, it just stands out to me nonstop where they talk about the poor health of his arm and then the obvious like concerns of like UCL and stuff. Is that sitting with you? Because I feel like that's the total battle of like you have this proximity pitcher who probably theoretically goes right into a rotation, great stuff. But then you have the stuff has gone down and arm concerns right off the bat. Like, what's your vibe on Roki? Because I feel like he tags the positive and extreme negatives of what you're concerned about with pitching prospects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think you got to just kind of bet on the talent at a certain point. Like, I just think it's a really bad first year player draft class. Like, I think you just have to take Sasaki and just hope for the best. I'm not trading up to take Sasaki. I'm not going to take Sasaki in redraft leagues at his current price. And I'm not going to trade for Sasaki or take Sasaki in like a startup dynasty league. But if you're just sitting there on the clock, first year player draft, number 1 pick, I think you just got to take him. And Maybe he needs Tommy John surgery, but he's young enough that I think you got to look at it as an investment in your dynasty league. Like, even if he can't help you for a stretch due to needing a Tommy John surgery, you might have him for another 7-8 years and really productive after that. So I'm plenty worried, but I also just don't know what you're supposed to do other than trade out of the number 1 spot.
Yeah, trading out might end up being a play, but yeah, you're like facing this young pitcher who could be phenomenal for many, many years to come. And you could look back if Yamamoto was available in a first-year player, and you're like, man, did I really give up on that? I think it's tough. Like you said, you kind of just got to take him. You got to close your eyes and take it. But pending what's floating out there, I've actually had quite a few people hit me up about like offers they've received on their first-year player, and I do think you should maximize. I think you should get a haul if you're doing it, because it's unlike most classes. That person, whoever has it number 1, does get to take a major league ready pitching prospect who's young, and it's probably going to be ranking redraft wise higher than most. You got to get like an absolute haul for it. So I think that's a good play. Next up on this list, I think it's a great name. I'm excited to get your take on it for underrated. Yoniel Corrette. Hopefully I'm probably not saying it right, but Yoniel Corrette with the Tampa Bay Rays, 22-year-old pitcher who put up a significant amount of innings this past year, around 120, had a sub-3 ERA, strikeouts through the roof, a little bit of a whippy whip issue. But talk about Corrette, because that's a guy that has continued to move up lists, but I know you are a lot more aggressive. So Corrette, underrated.
Yeah, I love Corrette, and I think he would be my target. Like, if I'm doing like a dynasty startup or something like that, and I'm taking a pitching prospect who I don't expect to be up in the first half of 2025, it's going to be Corrette. Like, I think he's just got the type of upside to chase, and I think he is close. Like, I think we'll see him, maybe late 2025, certainly early 2026 if he stays healthy. He is already on the 40-man roster. He's got just some of the easiest velocity you'll see. I love that. Like, I love when you can kind of tell that a guy isn't throwing that hard, like max effort, and still mid-90s with ease. And he's a guy that coming into 2024, I had pegged as, a potential late inning reliever with a chance to be a starter still. But like, I think it was probably more likely entering 2024 that Corrette would end up in the bullpen. But from like June 11th on, he had a 110 ERA, a 107 whip, and 106 strikeouts with 29 walks in 73 and 2/3 innings. So 29 walks in 73 and 2/3 innings, still a little high, but I just love that he seems to be getting better. Like, I love when a pitcher specifically finishes much stronger than they started, because you can just get better as a pitcher as the season goes on. Your stuff gets better, your command gets better, you get better at sequencing. So I think he's trending way up. Has really just dynamite stuff. Like I said, just easy mid-90s velocity, plus slider, changeup's getting better. So we'll see how legitimate those control gains were over the final 3 months, but I think he's got a very, very high ceiling, and he's not going to be up super early in 2025, but I think he could be up later in the summer.
Where do you have him ranked as far as like overall top 100 and among pitchers?
On my update, I've had him kind of borderline top 50. He'll still be there. Among pitchers, I'll have him. I will have him 11th among pitching.
Give me a rough number. Okay, 11. Okay, so that's what I want to do. I kind of wanted to see what the general range is. So let me ask you, Corrette or Mizorowski?
That's a good one. I'll go with Corrette. I think Mizorowski's even riskier in terms of his command and control. So if I'm just betting on which one of these guys makes it as a starter, I'll take Corrette.
I'm worried about Mizrowski. I don't want to be, because like the stuff he has, like, it's like ridiculous. There's ridiculous stuff in there, especially about, I think of that futures game. What was it like that? It was an inside like two seamer he threw, throwing breaking pitches inside, but the command is just wild, and it's just consistently wild, and it's feeling more bullpenny than ever. But I think that's like a really fascinating name. Let me throw. How about Noble Meyer or Correct?
Yeah, I'm much lower on Meyer after what he showed with his control. So that's an easy one, correct.
I feel like I know this is going to go just decisively in this direction, but Brandon Sprott. Sprott's got to probably be. You have him higher because of proximity?
No, I've got Correct higher.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm not like as in on Sprout as everyone, or I don't know. Not everyone. Obviously, everyone's got different opinions, but I know that he probably wore down a little bit at AAA, but I mean, the quality of hitters at AAA were just not very good when he was there, and so I'd like to kind of see how he does again this year. But even though he's theoretically like closer because he got to AAA and Correct didn't, I think when we see the dust settle this offseason, it might be tough to envision a path to Sprout getting starts anytime soon in the season. So I don't really view it as that big of an edge with the proximity, and I just like Correct more as a pitcher.
This next guy, the last on your list, and I'm going to just throw one pitcher at us, was involved in a lot of trade talks. There's a lot of rotation talks in there. I would guess proximity is going to play a role in a decent amount of this, but you break it down here. Sean Burke with the Chicago White Sox. Did get 19 innings with the major league team, 1.42 ERA, pretty solid minor league season last year. He'd been around for quite some time. I mean, if you look at the totality of his career, it doesn't jump out to you as top prospect, but the team seems very, very high on him. They didn't end up moving him. So talk to us about Sean Burke and how he is underrated.
Yeah, I had Burke ranked briefly as a top 400 prospect in May of 2022 and January of 2023, but he was just kind of one of those guys who was always sort of off the list, on the list. And I didn't have him ranked at all until he came up late in the season. And I just thought he looked absolutely electric as a big league starter. And like he dominated Padres lineup with everyone healthy, cut his walk rate. Like this has been kind of a trend where guys walk more guys at AAA than they do in the big leagues, especially on these bad teams, because the balls and strikes challenge system at AAA. And then also I think these guys just get much better coaching once they're up with the big league coaches and big league pitchers than they do at AAA. And like Burke's got legit stuff. This isn't a, command control, deception guy. Like he's got a big time fastball, big time breaking ball. I know it's a ridiculously small sample, but just for the sake of referencing it, his 19.7 K minus walk rate in the big leagues would have ranked 15th among qualified starters in between George Kirby and Michael King. So like that's how good he was pitching just in that tiny sample in the big leagues. He might not be able to recapture that form. He's dealt with some durability stuff in the past. I think the 90.2 innings he had last year is a career high for him. But I think the stuff is really good, and he's going to be in the opening day rotation. So obviously not a good team context with just like defense and run scoring, but just he's a target for me inside the top 400 as a redraft pick. And so for me, that translates to dynasty as an easy top 100 prospect.
I laugh because it is funny, because it's like from a team context standpoint, it couldn't be worse. Like everything is bad, except you do have to give a little bit of credit developmentally of like what the White Sox at least are doing with pitching at the major league level. It's work. I mean, Garrett Crochet kind of defied odds. Mm-hmm. Not saying Sean Burke is Garrett Crochet, but as you were focusing on the game logs, it is impressive. Three of his 4 starts, 5+ strikeouts in the majors. The batting average, 2 of those 4 starts held batters to under 200. that is pretty impressive, like start. And, you know, he was talked about in some trade rumors early on, and they didn't end up moving him. You know, they didn't end up moving him to like go and get something else. So I think that is a super sneaky one for sure. Where did you say you have him in your own personal ranks?
He's going to be like I've got him around like 40, 45 right now. So top borderline top 10 pitching prospect.
So he's like right above Curette.
Yep.
Okay. The pitcher I'm going to put in here again, poking around at, like, I think this name rose a pretty dramatic degree this year, maybe in how I feel about them versus what the market value is, and calling it semi underrated. This also might be to maybe not the hardcore people, but the people that are, you know, dialing around, maybe not understanding that Travis Sikora is, I think, I mean, obviously had one of the best seasons last year among overall pitching prospects, but I think is exceptionally valuable inside that top 100 list. Had a 2.3 ERA this past year, a ridiculous amount of strikeouts. I think it was a splitter that started just going nuts. He's a big, huge bodied guy, 6'6", 230, and did only finish at A ball, which I wish I could have seen a little bit more. That would have low whip, absolutely ridiculous. The Nationals have got a few of these guys. I know Yarlin Susana, you know, ridiculous strikeout numbers, had some ups and downs. Sikora didn't. This to me is kind of like that public perception versus the value. What do you think about Travis Sikora? I don't know where you have him. Do you think this is ridiculous? You think he's already too high? I think for prospect people that rank and do lists, Sikora is probably pretty much up there. But like when you compare him against Curette, where are you at?
I've actually got him right next to Curette. I've got, like, on my draft of my next update, I've got Curette at 49 and Sikora at 50. I've got Sikora of all the pitching prospects who I don't think are going to reach the majors in 2025. I have Sikora ranked highest. Like, I've got him ahead of Hagen Smith, ahead of Chase Burns, ahead of Brandon Sproat, ahead of Mitrowski. So like I dig it, man. I'm right there with you.
Okay, I'm over Hagen Smith and stuff. That's a pretty big marker too. And I like how you said it, because it's, of all the pitching prospects you don't expect in the majors, that's a pretty high marker. But also, you know, you are going to rank guys higher up there. Do you view Hagen Smith as a pitcher, by the way, that can get to the majors this year?
I think Smith or Burns could be up this year, but I wouldn't, like, I'm not banking on it. Like, I wouldn't touch those guys in a draft and hold, for instance. I think there's just this really big, it's just everyone's chasing their tail, like trying to find the next Paul Skeens, and it's just a fruitless effort. And I just would not recommend looking at a Hagen Smith or a Chase Burns and like, oh, I got to get this year's Paul Skeens. Like, that's not what it is.
Okay, so let me do a rank. Let's do Chase Dolander, Quinn Matthews, Travis Sikora.
I have Matthews, Sikora, Dolander.
Is Dolander purely because of Colorado?
Yep.
Which is understandable, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, he's tough to rank. I don't think we're gonna know. But like, it might turn out like a couple of years from now that it's just like, oh, you idiots didn't have Dolander as a top 25 prospect. But it could also just be like oh, you idiots had him ranked and like you can't even use him in his roads or his home starts. So like, I don't know where it's gonna go with Dolander. I know he's really, really good pitcher. It's just we got to value the Coors thing. I
would say that if Chase Dolander was a Brave, he would probably be a top 3 pitching prospect in baseball right now. I mean, ridiculous what he did across the board, his strikeout numbers. But the problem is you have a high-level college pitcher at lower levels going, and then you've got the Colorado factor in there. Not to be dismissive, because I probably have Dolander higher than most people. I've got him very high on that list. Like, I would rank who the hell did I just ask you? I have it. I actually have it Dolander, Matthews, Sikora. because I think his stuff is so ridiculous. But to your point, Colorado can ruin him, can absolutely ruin it. But that's a stuff play. But it is tough because also it's not organizationally. I mean, maybe they're changing. You know, Sean Sullivan put up, you know, big numbers. Like maybe they're fixing something as far as their pitching development, but there's nothing in the Rockies development that gets any of us excited outside of wanting to throw up thinking about the environment that they pitch in. But this is more about a Travis Sikora thing. Travis Sikora, underrated prospect, pending what you're looking at. The last question.